All right, so I'm gonna try to give a talk here on web components. It's a relatively new technology or set of technologies. I just started looking at it probably like last year, and I just thought it was really interesting. So I'm gonna try to give a talk on it. All right, so let me start off by just giving some reference material. How I came up to date with it was pretty much listening to this guy. I'm just gonna reference him, Eric Bidelman. He's an engineer at Google. He's on the Chrome team and the Polymer team. So he's working really close with these set of technologies, and he's a core contributor on HTML5rocks.com. And here's a couple of the links to a lot of the articles that I read to get up to date with it. And like you'll see in the next section, it comprises of 4 core technologies or web technologies. And those are what make up web components. They're basically, we'll go through it in the next section. But also he has YouTube videos, a lot of Google I/O talks that were really good as well. So I would recommend you guys, if you're interested in web components after this. All right, so I'm going to pretty much try to do this whole presentation just in this browser. I'm going to try to do it from scratch, and we'll see if it works. So let's just move on. So the next thing I want to go over is these are the 4 technologies that actually make up web components. Some of you may be familiar with a few of them or all of them. I'm just going to go over them real quick. I'm not going to go into too much detail. I want to just go into the code. So basically, there are custom elements, HTML templates, shadow DOM, and HTML imports. So I'll just go over each one real quick. I just have 1 or 2 bullet points for each. So custom elements, they're basically, they allow the developers to define new types of HTML elements. I think we're all pretty much familiar with this in one way or another. We all use some client-side framework, such as like maybe Angular or, but basically the way they work is you can create your own elements, your own HTML element. The difference with web components is this will be native, or I should say this is native to the browser. And on all of the HTML5 JavaScript technologies. So it's native. You can just use it in code. And in fact, I'm using the Chrome browser right now, and I'm going to be doing the whole demo in the Chrome browser without any polyfills or anything, because I think since Chrome 36, it's supported full web components, all of the set of 4. Okay. So yeah, so just for an example, custom elements, they look like this. You can name it whatever you want. I don't know what the convention will be eventually. This is an emerging technology, but I think it's best if you use a dash in your component name, and maybe prefix it with maybe the name of your company, the convention may be, but I think a dash is something that you should be using. And like it says here, it's treated just like any other HTML element, which means you have access to attributes, methods, etc. You can select the tag name just like you would any other, and you can grab the element. So as far as I know, it virtually can do everything else a regular HTML tag can do, or HTML element, I should say. All right, so custom elements. Now we have HTML templates. So templates are pretty much what you think it is. You can define little fragments of code within the template tag. Now, what you should know is that defining a template tag and putting it on a page, it doesn't really do anything when the page loads. It's basically inert. Okay, so and we'll see this when we create the web component. You have to grab what you want out of the template, and then you can place it in the page. And I think a lot of us are familiar with that kind of development too. If you've used things like backbone with underscore to grab something out of a script tag. So I think it's a similar process like that, but we'll go over it when we do some of the coding. So shadow DOM. Shadow DOM, I think by far is probably the most, how should I say, the most in-depth in terms of how much you have to learn. But as we'll see as I demonstrate this, it's not really as much as most people may think it is. I know there's 4 separate technologies, but I think it's pretty easy. And in fact, what I'll be doing is I won't be using any libraries at all either during the demo. I'm just going to use ECMAScript 5, and that's it. Nothing fancy, just so we can see, basically what it is. So anyway, Shadow DOM addresses the DOM tree encapsulation problem. So basically what that means is you pretty much you get encapsulation for the component you're trying to create. So say you're trying to create a component, you want to add it to someone's page. You're not going to get the collisions that you would get for, normally, where you can have some, JavaScript doing something to the page that you didn't want it to do, or styling issues because the CSS is bleeding over into some other control. You're not going to have those types of problems because Shadow DOM pretty much resolves those problems. Okay, so the last piece of web components is by far, I think, the easiest one to understand is HTML imports. And this pretty much provides a way to include HTML documents within other HTML documents. Like you see here, and it's very similar to the style import. We're just going to use a link, and instead of style sheet here, we're going to just use import. And then we can just do the path to the HTML web component. Now, the reason this is pretty cool is because although I'm just pulling in this one HTML, whatever files are associated with this HTML file, any JavaScript I have with it, or style sheets or anything like that, any CSS, will all be pulled into this page just by this one call. So I think that's something that's cool, and it's pretty easy to understand. And we're going to see this too. We're going to see all 4 parts of this during the demo. So now let's get into the demo, because I have a couple of things I want to go through, and hopefully we'll have time to do it, and hopefully everything works. If it doesn't, I'm sorry about that. But I really wanted to try to go into detail from scratch with web components so people can see it's not really that hard to build the web components, and you don't even really need the large frameworks. Well, I won't call it large, but the libraries like Polymer or anything like Xtag. You need it when you start building larger apps, but I think it's better when you're starting off to build something small. Just use the native technology and understand what's going on under the hood. And then as you're building, and I think if you're building small projects, you can actually just continue doing that. When you start building bigger web components, I think that's where using a library may come in pretty handy. Polymer is pretty cool. I've used that. And it also has two-way data binding with Polymer, I believe. But anyway, let's get into the demo because, like I said, I want to just complete these things. And let me just go through them real quick. In this demo, I want to create a calculator web component. It's something simple we all understand. And so I'm gonna try to build that. So what I'll do is I'll create an index page, which will be the parent document. And then we're going to create a separate web component file and import it into the index page. And hopefully everything should just work like that. After we do that, I want to actually create a custom theme for the calculator, because that's another important point that I want to make with the web components, is that it's fully encapsulated. So to actually override styles and things like that, you have to do it in a special way. So I want to be able to do that. Then I want to set up two-way communication with the parent document and the web component. There are basically ways you can do that. Basically, you have to expose an API of sorts in the web component, and that's done through events and methods and properties. I'm going to be using events, custom events, and methods to do the kind of two-way communication. After that, I want to set up an attribute to configure the calculator, and we'll get into that a little later. And then finally, I want to integrate it with another web component, which I won't go through the trouble of building from scratch. I'll just copy it over. Okay, so let's get into the demo. And let me also say this, since we have time, if you guys want to just ask a question, you can just ask it. You can interrupt me, that's fine, because we have some time. All right, so let's just get into it. So we're going to create the calculator web component, and I broke it down into 2 parts. I'm going to set up the index page, and then I'll set up the web component after that. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is create the index page, which I did here. And now we're going to import the calculator web component that we're going to build. All right, so, okay. I don't know what. Well, let's do it like this at first, and if it's taking too long for me to type it all, I'll just copy and paste some of it. But I just want to kind of give you a feel for what's going on here. All right, so I'm just going to put a title, call it calculator. All right, so the first thing I'm actually going to do is import it, right? So, you know, I'm sorry because I usually use Sublime, and I just chose to use Chrome, this Chrome thing today. I'm not sure why, but usually it would do all this for me. Anyway, like I said, we're going to put a link, and we're going to call it import instead of style sheet, and then in the href we'll say this is going to be the name of the file we're going to create. We'll call it open calculator. HTML. Okay, so and on this page what we'll do is we'll just create an, just so we have a title here. And the way we're going, so this basically is going to import the web component, and the web component that we're going to create is actually going to be self-registering, and this will actually, putting the tag here will actually create it. Okay, so yeah, let's do that. So that's pretty much what we want, right? Now we're going to create the, let's just see here. Create a simple header, add calculator web component tag to the body. Okay, so now we're going to create the web component. We'll call it open calculator.html. Okay. So what you see here, so let me just point two things out. So we actually approached two different parts of the web component specs. First part is the HTML import, which we see up here, and this part is actually the custom element, because this is what we're trying to create, and although it's not created yet, this is how we would put the custom element on the page. Should be nothing shocking here. So the next part is actually, we're going to get right into template. So we're going to define a template here. And we're going to put a script as well, so we can put some code into it. All right, so let's see. 1 second. So within the template tag, there's a couple of things you can do. You can define your template, obviously, but you can also define a style. So you can put your style sheet stuff that applies to your template. Okay. Now the next part I want to do is actually, I want to put like the scaffolding for the web component here. So that's what I just want to show you next. So I'm gonna just do that, and I'm gonna copy and paste a few things, and then I'm gonna explain it. So the first bit that I'm gonna copy over is this. So when we're working with web components, we got to realize a few things. We have the parent document with, which is pretty much this document where we're putting the web component. To access that document is actually just using document. So I'm gonna kind of alias a few things. So that document is pretty much referring to the parent document. So if we want to refer to this document, so we can grab things within the template, this is actually how you can access it. There might be other ways of doing this, but from what the tutorials that I went through, this was one of the ways that was actually easy for me to understand. So with this document, we're actually going to use a query selector to get the template. And so let me explain exactly what's going on with that. But I'm going to just copy over a little more code before I explain that. Okay. So basically, all right, let me just copy over one more. Okay, so basically, this is pretty much what makes up a web component. There's not really much more than this. This is actually what I use as my scaffolding when I'm creating any web component at this point. So let me just explain what's actually going on. We have a reference, like I said, to this document, that document. Now, to actually create something that someone can see, because right now if we execute this, like I said, the template doesn't show anything on load. The template is something you can use at runtime to grab some stuff, like some HTML stuff, and then display it somewhere you want. So that's what we're actually doing. We're creating an element, just a basic HTML element, and then we're using that element to parent document. That's why we're using that doc. And we give it a tag name. This is the tag name that we're actually using here. And we enter the prototype. And the prototype is whatever you actually want to create here. It can be a lot of different things. You can extend existing HTML elements if you want. I'm just using a basic one. So basically, it's going to register the element, and then when the element actually gets created, it's going to call this created callback. So in the created callback is where we're actually going to grab stuff from out of our template and then append it to the shadow root. So this this is where all of the kind of the web components come together. So this is we're actually going to create a shadow root within the element, and from that shadow root we're going to append a clone of the template that we have here. So you can see the template is something that we already pulled, and we're taking the content from within that template. So we're going to put content in here in a second, but I'm just showing it's cloning it, and then it's actually appending it to the shadow root. So this will actually get something to be displayed on the page. Okay, so let's see. Let's do this. We're just to make sure everything is actually working. I'm gonna say web component. Okay, so add the so I'm just going to add the calculator markup, styling, and logic. That I'm just going to pretty much copy and paste. So all right, first I'm going to create a CSS file, and this is actually not a great way to do it either, but I'm just doing it so that I don't take up too much space. So I'm going to just add the CSS in a separate file. And what I'll do is just I'm just going to use an import. This is actually not a preferred way of doing this for some performance reasons, but like I said, I don't want to add all of this to this file because it'll be harder to view everything. So now I'll just add the HTML. So it's just a simple calculator. I actually just grabbed it somewhere offline. It's just going to have basic numbers and basic arithmetic operations. And we'll have a clear button and a screen so we can see everything going on. And finally, let's add the logic. Add that. Okay. So let's see what happens here now. Let's see if this works. Okay, cool. All right, so So we saw that the actual web component itself, the scaffolding, there's not much to it. When you add your logic, obviously you're going to add a lot of things to your application. So, um, but what it's doing is grabbing what's in here, all the styling, all the HTML markup, and it's cloning it and it's putting in the shadow root. And then from here is where we actually, you see, all of the access to the different pieces of that clone, of that shadow root, is coming, is grabbing it from the shadow root. So that's the part I was talking about before. You can't just get it from like document or whatever it is. You have to actually get it from the shadow root because this is encapsulated inside of there. Okay, so it's a basic calculator. It should just be able to do regular operations. Okay, so that's fine. And we have clear. All right. All right, so the next thing I want to do is just create a custom theme. And the reason I want to do that is because it's just to show that basically when you define your styles in your parent document, it's not really going to bleed over into your web components, and vice versa. Whatever you define your web components is not going to come out to the parent document. So, but there are ways you can do it from the parent document. That's just what I want to go over. So to do that, I'm going to create a different file. We'll call it Open Calculator Theme CSS. Okay, and in that, let's import it into the document. Okay. All right, so we have that in there, and I'm just going to add one piece to this here. All right, so we save that. Nothing actually changes, and that's the point I kind of wanted to make. So we have the calculator ID. We know in the web component we have the calculator ID, and that's what I actually wanted to change, the styling of it. So I wanted to change the background to orange and just a few little changes. So the way you can do it, this is one of the ways you can do it, is actually you can use this prefix. Oh, that happened right away. You can use this prefix where you can say the name of the component, and then you can use this deep thing right here. And that will go down into the web component and make the changes that you want. And I'll just copy over the other pieces of styling. So basically, you can create a theme or whatever you want for your web components. You know, if the API is specified properly with your style sheet and everything. I was actually reading something the other day about this. I think they're actually changing this to an operator that's more like this. I think I was reading. But for right now, I don't think any of the browsers have implemented that, and they all have this one. So I'm just using this for now. So, all right, so we created a theme. So what's the next piece? All right, so now we're just going to set up a two-way communication between the document and the web component. So what that means is basically I want to create a clear button and a calculator screen on the parent document that's actually now part of the calculator. And then I want it to be able to communicate back and forth with the calculator. So to do that, let's go ahead and add some stuff to the parent document. So I'm just going to simply add a button, a clear button, and a screen. I'm also going to just add a style sheet for this. Call it index.css. Just so we keep the style stuff out of the way. And okay. So okay. So basically, this is the clear button. I want this to be able to work with the calculator. I want to be able to click this and be able to clear it like this one does. And I want to be able to see what's on the screen like this one is. So that's what we're going to pretty much try to set up. Now, to do that, we're going to set up a custom event in the web component that actually fires when the screen value changes. Now, this is the way. This is what you have to define in your API. When you're creating a web component, I think that the API has to be pretty specific to what it is it's trying to accomplish. So I think that's really important. Whatever events you're specifying, that's how people can, set up these types of communications. And whatever properties and methods you expose is also another way of doing it. So the first thing we'll do is create that custom event. All right, so there's a method that I have here that will update the screen. And then I'm going to be able to call it. So let me grab that first before I explain it. Okay. So every time, and this method is a simple method where for all the keys, when a click happens, basically it tries to calculate exactly what's going on and what should be displayed. So at the end of all that, basically I'm just taking the inner HTML from the input and I'm updating the screen event with it. So what the screen event will do is take the value, it's going to create a custom event, which I call open calculator screen update, and it's going to provide the value to detail, and then it'll dispatch that event, as you can see, to the parent document. So what we're going to do is in the parent document we'll just create an event listener. So let's do that. And so what we want to do is, first off, let's do this. So what we're going to do is we're going to just grab this screen. So we have a reference to that. And then when the event fires, we'll just say, all right, let's take the detail, which should be the value, and just populate it with the calculated screen. Okay. So let's see what happens there. Okay. So that works. So basically, like I said, we're firing an event from the web component, and we're capturing that event using this listener on the parent document. So that's the way we can do communication from the web component to the parent document. So it's pretty straightforward. It's nothing too fancy. It's actually just basic JavaScript. And since these elements are basic, native elements, you pretty much get everything you get with regular elements. So the other thing we want to do is actually be able to clear it with this button. So let's do that. Okay, so we're doing the same thing. We're actually just referencing the calculated clear button, and we're doing an on-click event. And we'll get a reference to the actual calculator, and we're going to actually create a method on the web component called clear screen, and that's what we'll use to actually clear the screen internally in the web component. Okay, so let's see. So the way you can actually just create these web components is, these methods are just regular methods. So we're going to say element, we're going to take the reference element, which is our prototype, and we're just going to create a clear screen function on it. And what that's going to do is just get the value. Actually, I'm sorry, it'll get the reference to the input, clear it, do some cleanup related to the calculator, and then it's going to call that update screen event. So it'll go back out to the parent document. So once we do that, okay. So now we have the clear button working and the display working. So we have communication going back and forth between the parent document and the web component. So it's, to me, it's as easy as that. I don't think it's anything complex. I think it's actually pretty simple. So, and it's basic stuff that we all already know. So the next part is with that. So the next part we're going to do, let's just set up an attribute. So what I'm trying to do with this piece is I'm trying to just get rid of the clear button and the display screen on the calculator, on the web component itself, by using some kind of configuration attribute. So I want to use an attribute that says, all right, don't show the top. And so we can just use these ones that we created outside of the web component. So to do that, we're going to use attributes. And it's a good way to actually show you how attributes work. So what we'll do is we're going to create an attribute called hide top. And we'll say true. Then in the web component, let's do this. Okay. So let's just put this code here. So what this code is basically doing, when we create the callback, when the callback is when the element's created, and we create our shadow root and append what we need to, then we're going to check the attributes. To check the attribute, you can just use this .get attribute, and remember we did a hide top. We're just going to parse it. So basically, if hide top is true, we want to basically hide the top of this, and the way I'm doing that is, since we have a top here, we're just doing a query selector, and then we're just setting the display to none. So basically, it should just hide it. So if we refresh that, so then it basically hides it. Now we can use it. Now we can, you see, we configured it. We can put whatever configurations we want on it. I just use this simple attribute just to show you an example. And now we can use it in different ways. And basically, we have the clear button and the display screen outside of the web component. So I just want to show this. It's a way you can break down, configure different web components, and you can do probably some interesting things on the page combining these web components. And speaking of combining, I think that should be the last part of this, yes. So what I want to do is actually try to integrate it with a different web component, so they kind of work together in a way. And this is just a simple example, but I kind of wanted to give an example of how you can use, if you set down have a set of rules or protocols for the web components you're using in a specific system, they can work in unison pretty well together, I think. So what I'm going to do is actually, I'm just going to create a web component that will take the numbers that we're using and actually display it in text form here at the same time. So that's the one I'll just create. I'll just copy and paste this. I'm not going to do it all over again. So this is the same kind of thing. Just has some different logic in it. The API that's exposed here is toText. So that's what we're going to actually use in the parent document. So let's import that. So importing number to text, and we can let's just paste it down here. And okay. So now we just have to do one more thing here. every time the screen updates in this listening event, we'll get a reference to this number to text element, and we'll use the to text in the API and give it the detail, the value, I should say. Okay, so every time we have a number, so we have 70. So you see it's updating two different things, and this one is actually a web component. This is a part of the page. So I just wanted to kind of demonstrate that you can do different things, or you can integrate different components together to create bigger, different things. I gave a really simple example, but hopefully you can see that you can probably do a lot of cool things. So yeah, I think that's actually it. So I think when you want to build something big and you need people to contribute little components to it, I think it could probably work wonders.